All right, you are good.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. For the duration of the coronavirus health emergency, Village Hall is closed to the public and meetings are held with participants at remote locations connected to conferencing software provided by Zoom.us. Members of the public are invited to view meetings live using the Zoom client, which also allows them to raise their hand and contribute with voice and video when they're invited to do so during public portions of the meeting. Please know that if you plan to give testimony, or as an applicant or an expert, or as a member of the public, you must be able to be visible via video. Audio is not sufficient. So if you plan on doing so this evening, please make sure that you are able to show yourself via video. Let's call the meeting to order and start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. To the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The following statement is required by the Open Public Meeting Act. Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided by posting on the bulletin board in Village Hall, by mail to the Ridgewood News, the Record, and by submission to all persons entitled to same as provided by law of the schedule, including date and time of this meeting. Please note that a curfew of 11 p.m. is strictly adhered to by the zoning board. No new matter involving an applicant will be started after 10:30 p.m. 10 p.m. we will make a determination and advise applicants as to whether they will be heard. If an applicant cannot be heard because of the lateness of the hour, the matter will be carried over to a future meeting to be determined by the board at 10 p.m. Roll call, please.
Okay. Chairman Allegra?
Here.
Greg Brown?
Here.
Gary Nygritz?
Here.
Diana Rule?
Here.
John Petro?
Here.
Isaac Leba?
Here.
Matthew Bandel?
Here.
Dan Perlman? Michael Pickles?
Okay. Now we need to approve the minutes of January 12th, 2020. With a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Second.
Okay. Chairman Allegra?
Yes.
Greg Brown?
Yes.
Gary Nygritz?
Yes.
Diana Rule?
Yes.
John Petro?
Yes.
Isaac Leba?
Yes.
Matthew Bandel?
Yes.
Okay. Now we move on to non-agenda items. Are there any comments by members of the board on matters not on the agenda this evening? There being none. Members of the public, if you are online and you would like to make a comment to a matter not on the agenda, please raise your hand and Dylan will let you in.
I'm showing none.
Okay, there being none. Give me 1 second. All right, so before we move on to old business, let's make a couple of announcements. If anyone is here for the Onadu matter, which is 155 Highland Avenue, Block 2503, that is being carried to February 23rd. And then if anyone is here for the Trip matter, which is 33 Bryden Place, Block 1905, that is being carried to February 9th. Is that correct, Jane, those dates?
That's right. Yes.
Both of those will be 7:30 p.m. via Zoom. No further notice is required. Okay, so now we will begin with our first applicant this evening. This is old business, the matter of Joshua and Caitlin Fern. It's an application to permit the construction of a one-story addition over the existing driveway, which results in coverage by above-grade structures within 140 feet of the front lot line of 25.3%, where 20% is permitted, coverage by improvements of 47.4%, where 45% is permitted, coverage by improvements within 140 feet of the front lot line of 52.6%, where 45% is permitted, at 133 Kenilworth Road, Block 4203, Lot 18 in an R2 zone. This matter is being continued from November 20th, 2020 without further notice. Mr. Rutherford.
So we also need David Rutherford, Jordan Rosenberg, and Laura Carucci, I think. Oh, Rhonda Reinstein, probably.
All right, I think I got everybody.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman.
Good evening.
For the record, David L. Rutherford appearing on behalf of Joshua and Caitlin Fern. And I think I see our reporter, and I see my clients, and I see Mr. Rosenberg. So I think we have everyone that we need, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much. I'm going to try to be expeditious this evening, but I did want to give the board just a little summary of where we've been with this application. It's been a while since we were last before the board. We've been before the board on 2 occasions with respect to this matter. We have provided transcripts of both hearings, and our intent in doing so was to ensure that hopefully all of you will be eligible to participate, deliberate, and decide the matter this evening. We first appeared in July, and some concerns were raised at that time about the existing and proposed coverages on the property. And the matter was carried to enable my clients to make investigation relating to building department records and for documents relating to prior approvals. So we filed an OPRA request, and we provided the board previously with a copy of that request. We provided a copy of the complete response, and we also provided a copy of the documents that we thought were relevant to this matter that were contained in the response. Quite honestly, there wasn't an awful lot there. I know the board is, and we all know that a large number of village records were lost in a flood about 20 or a bit over 20 years ago. It did establish, and we discussed this at the last meeting, that the pool and patio on the property, the last major improvement constructed upon it, did receive zoning review and proper permits. You'll recall there was a zoning approval for Mr. Merlino in there, and a number of permits. And there was also a survey very similar to the survey that's before the board this evening in terms of the improvements that it showed, the house, the porch, the driveway, the detached garage, the proposed pool, and the proposed patio. Between the first and the second meeting, my clients also revised their plan to eliminate a deck behind the home, which contributed substantially to the nonconformity relating to coverage by above grade structures, and replace it with a smaller grade level patio with the pergola. And the plan also eliminated a part of the driveway so as to reduce coverage by improvements. The board heard significant testimony from my clients and from Mr. Rosenberg when we were last here in October on both of those issues. When we came back in October, there were some concerns about a 6-foot high fence that runs along the southerly lot line between the rear of the house, connecting with a similar height fence that actually surrounds the pool. And there was also a question about whether or not the pergola needed to be included in the coverage by above grade calculation. So the matter was carried again to permit the filing of a second OPRA request to determine, to request tax assessor records, which I did. We've again provided a copy of that request and the response to the board. Again, it wasn't particularly illuminating. There really wasn't anything prior to the year 2000. I think the oldest document was a property record card dated October 25th, 2000. That did indicate that the garage, it was referred to on the second page of that assessment record that the garage was built in 1986, but it provided no detail. I also wrote after the last meeting to Paula Perez, the assistant zoning official, asking whether the pergola should be included in the coverage by above grade, the coverage by above grade structure calculation. She confirmed that it did need to be included. I also asked her about the fence, and she, in general terms, told me that the 6-foot high fence is permitted when it actually surrounds a pool, as opposed to being placed on a property that just happens to have a pool. That issue is moot for reasons which I'm going to explain in a moment. So since that time, you have now in front of you the latest plan prepared by Mr. Rosenberg. I think it's the latest revision date is January 3rd of this year. And that it includes the area of the pergola, 165 square feet in the coverage by above grade structure calculation, and also calls for the removal of the 6-foot high fence running along the southerly property line from the rear of the home to a point where it intersects with the fence actually enclosing the pool area, and its replacement with a conforming 4-foot-high fence. So a number of changes have been made to this plan in order to address board concerns. We've made as good an investigation as we can to try to explain to you how the improvements that are there on the property came to be. And we've gathered a bit of information, but I will say by no means is it a complete history of this property. So I have some very brief testimony from Mr. Rosenberg, just limited very strictly to the changes that have been made to the plan since the October meeting. We're happy to respond to any further questions the board may have, and then I would be prepared to offer a short summation. So if we could have Mr. Rosenberg sworn, please.
Mr. Rosenberg's been previously sworn. David, I can't hear you.
I'm back. I'm sorry. Mr. Rosenberg is here as well.
Right. Mr. Rosenberg's been previously sworn.
Thank you, Mr. Whitaker. Mr. Rosenberg, we filed with the board a revised 4-page set of architectural plans. I indicated a moment ago they're revised through January 3rd, 2021. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And I indicated to the board that there really weren't very many changes to it from the prior version of the plan. The one change is that you did revise the coverage by above grade structure calculation to include the pergola. Am I correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And that has an area of 165 square feet.
Yes.
And you've also revised the plan to call for the removal of an existing 6-foot-high fence that runs essentially from the southwest corner of the home along the southerly property line to where it connects to the a fence that actually surrounds the pool area. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. It's being removed and replaced with a 4-foot-high fence, I believe.
With a 4-foot-high fence, so that it will be in conformity with the ordinance. To be clear, the fence around the pool area is indeed 6 feet high, but that is permitted pursuant to the ordinance, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, and Ms., as you heard me say a moment ago, Ms. Perez has advised that the 6-foot-high fence running along the south lot line is not, albeit there may have been a permit for that at some point, it's not clear what was actually permitted. So that's been removed as well. Is that right?
Yes.
So as the result of all of the changes that have been made, the first round of changes, which called for the removal of the patio and a removal of a portion of the driveway.
Removal of the deck, yeah.
And I'm sorry, the deck, excuse me, and a removal of the portion of the driveway. And now further, the removal of the 6-foot-high fence in the location I just indicated and its replacement with a 4-foot-high fence. There have been some changes in the coverage calculations. So just to summarize very quickly, your plan indicates that coverage by above grade structures over the entire property is presently 29.6 and is going to go down to 25.3, correct?
Yes.
And coverage by above grade structures over the entire lot, presently 21.5%, and is going to go down to 18.6%, which is actually in conformity with the ordinance, correct?
Yes, it is.
And that is primarily the result of the removal of the deck,
That's
correct?
right. Yes.
And that reflects the area of the pergola as well. And then with respect to the coverage by improvements, we're presently at 49.3 over the entire lot, and we're going down to 47.4.
Yes, sir.
And that's a function of two things. That's a function of the removal of a couple of little slivers of asphalt, et cetera, in the driveway. And it also reflects the fact that the proposed patio is smaller in area than the deck that it is replacing.
That's right. That's correct.
And the last number here, lots of numbers here, but the last number is the coverage by improvements is presently 55.4 within 140 feet and is being reduced to 52.6 within 140 feet. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Anything else on the plan? I'm going to, in my summation, I'm going to redirect the board's attention hopefully to the actual improvement that we're proposing to build. But everything else on your plan is exactly the same as it was presented in October.
That's correct.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, that's all I would have for Mr. Rosenberg. Thank you.
Just so the record is clear, It's been referred to as a pergola. It's been referred to on the plan as a trellis. It's one and the same, correct?
Yeah,
Yes,
I'm
that's
sorry, misspoke on my part. Yes, I'll use the word trellis in the future. Thank you.
Okay. Well, first of all, I want to thank the applicant, Mr. Rutherford, Mr. Rosenberg, for, coming back a third time to make sure that all of the concerns that the various board members had were addressed. And from my perspective, you've done that. You've done it very well. And I really want to, just let you know how much we appreciate you kind of working with us to make sure that what we end up with is a win for, the applicant as well as the village. So I just want to let you know that doesn't go unnoticed. I do have one question, because again, I think you've addressed everything, but just for my clarification, and then I'll open it up to questions for board members. Is it fair to say that all of the percentages have either remained the same or gone down?
Yes, that's accurate.
All right, thank you. All right, so let's go around the horn and see if we've got questions. Isaac Lebo, any questions?
No, Mr. Rutherford and Mr. Rosenberg answered all questions that I may have had. So thank you.
All right, thanks. Matthew Benedelt, questions?
No questions. Thank you.
Gary Negritz, questions?
Just one. In reading through the transcript, question came up, and from the photos, it appears that there is a second floor in the garage. Is that so or not?
I can answer that, Mr. Negris. Yes, there is a second floor. It is used entirely for storage. It is not heated, air conditioned. It does not have plumbing. It doesn't have anything. It's just total dead storage. The answer is yes.
But it is square footage.
Yes.
And is that square footage in the gross square footage under accessory structure?
Mr. Rosenberg has to answer that. I'm not sure.
A very good question. The area of the garage attic has a sloped roof, so a percentage of it would likely count, and then a percentage of it would not. I had never had the opportunity to field verify the attic because it wasn't in the scope of work, the attic of the detached garage, that is. And being that it's not changing and no variance request for it, for an accessory structure, it's very possible that the number was interpolated for the attic. But let me be more clear here and take a look at the drawings really quickly. And look at the chart. Gross floor area of accessory structure, 441 existing, and then no change. So the 441 would be attributed only to the first floor of this garage structure, being that it's approximately 20 by 20 or 20 by 22 and a half, something like that. Something that would equate to 441 square feet. Now, with that said, I'd like to share my screen if I could. Just to get on the record, a photograph of this unfinished attic used for storage. Just a second, please. Okay. Share screen, wherever that button might be. There it is. And there we go. And there's the garage as it is today. So you can see by the far end, we got less than 7 feet, and then it slowly tapers up to something that—
Gordon, I can't.
We're
Jordan,
not
sorry,
seeing the
but I
picture,
can't see
Mr.
it.
Rosenberg.
You can't see my screen.
No.
No, we see gray lines.
Darn it. Let me try again.
There we go.
We see your files.
Darn it. Please move this window away from the shared application. Okay. Move this window away from the shared application.
Now that's your desktop
We're
background.
back to the,
Almost there, guys. Just a sec. We're going to give it one more try right now. Well, Okay.
Mr. Rosenberg, I'll just ask you a question. You've shown on your plan that the permitted gross building area for accessory structures is 682 square feet. Is that correct?
yes.
682, and the first floor is only 441.
Thank you.
And you've indicated that a portion of the second floor is indeed less than 7 feet that wouldn't be included. So would it be accurate to say that the gross building area of the garage, even if you included that portion of the second floor that's required to be included, is probably less than what's permitted?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
That's a good way to approach it. Thank you, David.
Thank you. Jonathan Pepitro, any questions?
No questions at this time, Mr. Chairman.
Diana Rule, questions?
But wouldn't the deck off the second floor be included in the gross building area?
Can you please repeat that question?
Wouldn't the deck off the garage be included?
In
Gross-
coverage by above grade structures for an accessory building.
Yeah,
Well, it's
and all the square footage for the step back.
steps and the stoops, the step and the deck that wraps around.
Mhm.
So if you get the 605 plus whatever is up there, it's less than 100 square feet. It's more than 100 square feet above.
I don't believe that the exterior deck or stairs would be included in the gross building area calculation. I think it just includes the enclosed area. And Mr. Rosenberg, on his coverage by above grade structure calculation, has included the detached garage and deck he's shown as 605 square feet, which is the 441 represented by the building itself, and then the deck area.
164 for the deck, yeah.
Right, the area that the deck, we're using it as an imprecise term, Mr. Rosenberg. It's the stairs and the walkway that permit access to the second floor of the garage, correct?
It's not really a deck because you can't put furniture out there or sit out there. It's just a narrow a passageway made out of wood to access the second floor.
Right, and that area is included in your coverage by above grade structure calculation.
That's correct, yes.
Thank you.
Greg Brown, questions?
One thing could,
Hang on. Greg Brown, any
Okay.
questions?
No questions. Thank
just
you.
trying to close the loop on this. I believe you had photos of that accessory structure, and I can't seem to find mine. Have you got yours around, George?
Again, I'm having difficulty sharing my screen, but I'll give it a try. I may have to rely on either the homeowner or David to share their screen with the picture of the garage because my share screen is not working.
I know the photographs, Ms. Wondergem, were indeed marked and posted. Are you able to share your screen? I believe that's what Mr. Negres is looking for.
I'm not able to share my screen. I'm sorry. David, I could email you the picture of it and you can pull it up on your screen.
I'm going to be able to do any better. I'm sorry.
And you can't see that, right?
No.
That's unfortunate. I don't know what to do.
I don't know, Mr. Negres. I'm not sure we can access those photos right now. I'm sorry.
They're on the website, right? I mean, I'm looking
Give
at
me
Yeah.
1 second, I'll share them.
I'm looking at a series of photos on the website.
They might go all the way back to the first meeting in July.
Yeah, there's just one PDF file that's called photos that contains a number of different angles. I'm not sure it's the one Gary's looking for.
Yeah, I think it's like, I believe it's 9, Mr. Chairman, I think.
Yeah, and yes, these have been up there since the beginning, actually. So they've been up there for quite some time.
Or are those the ones you want to share?
Those are the only ones we have.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah, that's it.
Which one do you want me to go to?
That's the back of the main house.
Yeah, keep going.
That one.
That's the existing deck on the back of the main house.
There will not be one of the garage. There may be one, but I'm not sure.
NSC, a garage in here.
All right, I'm going to try again.
All right, before you start sharing, open up the document, open up the picture first. And then once it's open, come back to Zoom and then click on share and you'll see it in the window you want to share and choose that picture. And then you click share one more time and then it should come through.
Okay. I'll give it a try. Okay.
There you go.
I think I did it.
Nice job.
Thank you for that. And thank you for that excellent instructions. Okay, there you go. There it
You'll
is.
get my invoice.
That's kind of what I thought I was going to see. I'm assuming those sliding doors,
6'8", correct.
right? So I would think that a good portion of that second floor is in the number. Because I'm looking at the peak and the hangover. And I think probably out of 440 square feet, just looking at it, I think you got a lot more than a little bit. I think you got a couple of 100 feet. So
what I can tell you from this interior photograph here is that rear wall is less than 7 feet, but it does taper up to more than 7 feet, which would be included in that calculation for gross floor area for an accessory structure. I think it's safe to say that at least 80% of the second floor, 80% of the 441 square feet of the floor below would probably be above 7 feet. 441 times 1.8, 793 square feet is an approximation of what the gross floor area of the accessory structure is.
Well, I think it's an existing structure. I just think we should have the correct number on the chart so that, if we were to approve this, all the numbers are right.
Do you go past 20%?
No, well, it's accessory structure, Mr. Whitaker. It has its own.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
It has its own
Understood.
percentage.
That's right.
It may be non-conforming because it may exceed the 7% that's permitted, but our position obviously would be it's just a non-conforming situation, and we're proposing no change to that whatsoever.
Right.
All I want to do is get the right numbers on the sheet.
Agreed and understood, and I agree with that 100%. If the board were to act favorably, we are happy to modify that to show the accurate number there.
Very good. So currently the gross floor area for the accessory structure under proposed, it says no change. And that will be revised to say the actual square footage as well as the existing row. We'll go from 441 square feet to
whatever it is.
Yeah, approximately
Okay.
790.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that explanation. We'll now open it up to members of the public. Are there any members of the public that have any questions? If so, please raise your hand and Dylan will let you in. In fact, if there's any members of the public who would like to make a comment, we might as well just do those simultaneously. We'll go with questions first, but if you also have a comment, let Dylan know.
I am showing none.
All right, there being none. Mr. Rutherford, any additional testimony or you want to wrap things up?
Yeah, just a very, very brief. I'll try to be very brief, Mr. Chairman. Just to bring the board back to what brought us here in the first place was a very modest mudroom addition on the north side of the home. It has an area of 86 square feet. I would suggest to you that what it lacks in size, it makes for in function because it's going to really improve the ease of access to this home. You'll recall that there's an awkward interior layout, and this is going to give a little bit of room for folks to take off coats and shoes and put down packages, etc. So all of the existing improvements on this property were there when my client purchased it. As I indicated in the opening, the Oprah responses were not particularly illuminating. Did establish certainly that the pool and patio apparently did receive zoning approval, zoning review, and were indeed approved based upon a plan that's very similar to the survey that we've based our plan on this evening. We're dealing with a property with a lot of improvements, but a relatively small home. And I would point out that the gross building area of this home, even with the 86 square feet of the mudroom being added, is still much less than what is permitted. The addition is very small. We have, however, I think, taken significant steps to improve the situation, to reduce nonconformities, and in one case, to eliminate a nonconformity altogether, which is the coverage by above grade structures over the entire lot. The deck is going to be removed. The related encroachment into the side yard will also be removed. This will reduce coverage by above grade structures over the first 140, and as I indicated, eliminate that variance entirely over the entire lot. We've also removed some portions of the driveway so as to reduce coverage by improvements. The proposed patio is less than the area of the deck it replaces. That also had an effect on coverage by improvements. And finally, a beneficial aspect of the plan is the removal of the non-conforming 6-foot high fence along the south lot line and its replacement with a 4-foot high fence. So we've done our best to figure out how these things came to be. We've tried to address them. And I think on balance, the improvements that we're making to the property are fairly significant. I hope the board agrees. The proposed mudroom addition has a very minor impact on coverages, only 86 square feet. It complies with the side yard. It's a 1-story structure. It's kind of tucked behind the house, if you will. You can see it a little bit from the street. It's a bit wider than the front porch, but it's kind of tucked back there in kind of an unobtrusive place. So we think, in appreciating all the time that the board has given the matter, we think we made some significant changes to the property. We think there's a proper basis for variance relief, and we would ask the board to approve the application as revised. Certainly, we agree. Mr. Negra's comment is well taken. We will revise the plan to show the accurate gross building area figure for the detached garage. And we thank you for your time, and we ask the board to approve the application.
Thank you, Mr. Rutherford. The hearing is now closed, and we will now either deliberate or introduce a motion. Board members.
Just one point of clarification. The fence that's now 4 feet, it's a solid fence, correct?
Yes.
Okay, just wanted to know. Thank you.
Board members, deliberation and or motion.
I think they did a great job taking care of the fence, the deck. For the application, however, I do want to put a deed restriction that they cannot finish the second floor in the garage. If it's only being used for storage, it's all insulated, has nice high hats already in there, and a nice deck. I would like to put that in there.
Mr. Rutherford, your client's amenable to that?
I can't. I'm probably going to have to ask, Mr. Chairman, and I'm going to have to, maybe the board can have further discussion. I'll make a very quick call right now.
Sure, why don't we go ahead and do that? So any other board members would like to make any comment prior to, we can't make a motion yet until Mr. Rutherford gets back to us.
Yeah, I'll get Rob, yes.
Diana, the restriction is no living area on the second floor, correct?
That's correct.
What if they were to put that living area in? What does that do? Does that
Well,
change?
first, they're not technically allowed to
That's
put,
why I'm just asking. Why? What?
but if you're putting a deed restriction, at least the person who buys the house next time is on notice. I guess what happened here is these poor people bought the house with all these
Calling
changes.
about this, I think now they're suggesting that, oh, I'm sorry.
Like,
Mute, David.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Oh, excuse me.
there we go. No, so that way the person who buys the house next time knows that that finished space will never be finished. You're not supposed to have an accessory structure, living space, unless it's been grandfathered.
What is considered living space? Does it have to have like a bathroom or like what? I'm just.
Basically, my understanding is you can't put heat up there, water. Can
But
they
if they were to sheetrock it and floor it, is that considered living space? Bruce?
No.
Okay.
So they can't put heat, water. They
Right.
can't make.
Well, I think you could put heat. You could have a heated garage. Yeah, right, you can't put water, plumbing, right?
Can't put plumbing in there, no bathroom, no kitchen.
But you could take a garage, sheetrock it, insulate it, and put heat and just have a heated garage.
Absolutely.
But, you use it to keep your
Yeah.
classic cars.
But the issue is that garage was not existing back in the early 1900s when this house was built. Someone put on that second floor of that garage. If you look at that structure, it is not an original structure. And like I said, they're really 7 feet. Basically, by us giving them this variance, we're saying that that garage is oversized for the lot.
But did they get permitted to build that garage?
There is no proof of it because we don't know if it's because of Floyd or they never got a permit for it.
So by just saying it can't make it living space, that just means they can't put in plumbing, I mean, they could put electrical to have lighting in there.
Right, you could have
You
insulation.
could have heating and they can have lighting. It's just
electrical.
it's not supposed to be lived in other
Right.
words.
So you can use it as an office.
They don't want to make it a second apartment, like an apartment or.
You can't use it as an apartment, correct?
Right, okay.
They can
Maybe,
use a pool house with plumbing.
Right.
Okay.
Can they make it a kid's playroom up there?
Yes.
Can't. They
Yeah.
can't put a bathroom.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I know I've been listening with one ear to you and one ear to my client. I'm sorry, I didn't mute myself immediately. We would want to have and this, I can't say is really contemplated. It's just because it's brought up, we'll react to it, It doesn't necessarily mean that there's any plan here for anything. But if I heard the board correctly, we could not put plumbing out there. No one could live there. There wouldn't necessarily be any impediment to it being finished and be used as an office or something of that nature. Is that correct? Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, so we'll ask Diana. Diana, you're basically saying they can use it the way anybody else would use an accessory structure, but they can't use it for.
My concern really is it's an oversized garage. By us approving this application, we're approving well, we don't know if they ever got a permit or not. And it's not Mr. Rutherford's fault or anybody else's fault. We don't know. So we just need to think about it if we are given the approval, what are we giving with regards to the garage? And Gary, I don't know
Here.
You're the one who also brought up that it's over the 700 square feet they're allowed. per garage.
Is it fair to say that what you're okay with is that they could use the garage the way garages are contemplated to be used in Ridgewood? You're not restricting them further from how anyone else could use a garage. You don't want them to use it for an apartment or something like that.
Everybody here has to think about what they're approving. The deck off the garage. If they came today and said, I want to deck off the garage and I want to go over the square footage of coverage by improvements, what would we have said? No.
But
this is
no. Here's the question, because you're making a motion. So the question is, What exactly do you
I
want
want
to
other
restrict?
people, I want other people's opinions. I'm saying, I'm bringing up
All
the
right, so here's
garage.
my opinion. My opinion is it makes perfect sense to say that this should be restricted to being a garage and used as a garage as an accessory structure. However, accessory structures are used, and yes, plumbing should not be put in there. But
But-
I do not believe, and I won't vote for a motion that says that it should be restricted, that it can't even be used as an accessory structure. It's already there. If they wanted to have put heat in it a month ago, they could have, and they could have gotten a permit for it. So I don't want to restrict them from doing something that they could have done a month ago. But I do agree that we should not let them put plumbing and make an apartment in there.
I would
Okay.
agree.
So
I
like-
agree. I agree that's with
I
that as
think
well.
that's where we're all headed. It's a
Yeah.
garage. Use it as you would use a garage.
But I just want the next person who buys that house to
Well, it'll be
know,
a deed restriction.
I want a deed restriction because it's
So
the only
the
way.
restriction is going to be that there will be no plumbing installed. It will be allowed to be heated. It can be used in connection with the house itself, but it cannot be a separate apartment. It will have no bathroom. It will have no kitchen. But obviously, somebody could use it as a cabana, and by that I mean use it, go upstairs and change and things like that, rather than go in the house. That's permitted.
They can
Yes.
put a TV in there, they can hang out, it
That's
can be a hangout room, whatever. But yeah, it's just it's not an apartment. It cannot be lived in.
I just want to have the discussion as
Yeah.
to what that should be.
Yeah, that's fine. I appreciate and understand that. That's not a problem. What you have just, I won't even try to repeat it. I'm sorry, but what you have just said is not an issue. And we have recorded the resolution. We're using the term deed restriction, but basically we're talking about recording the resolution so that the terms and conditions under which the board approved the matter are a matter of public record. And
That is correct.
property owners would be charged with knowledge of what occurred here and the conditions that were imposed. And we have no issue with that.
Bruce, does that sound good?
That's correct.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Rutherford.
Thank you.
So is that, Dana, is that a motion?
That would be a motion, I guess.
All right, very good. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Who is that?
Isaac?
Isaac.
Okay. All right, Greg Brown,
Yes.
Gary Negritz,
Yes.
Diana Rule,
Yes, sorry.
John Petro,
No,
Isaac Lebo,
Yes.
Matthew Bandel,
Yes.
Chairman Allegra.
Yes. Okay, so motion carries, you're approved.
Thank
Good
you
luck
very
with the
much.
renovations.
We appreciate
very
all the time you gave the matter. We really do. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, so we will move on now. Dylan, Jane, could you make sure that the next applicant, which is Martinez Lerman, and I think they do not have a representative, but whoever
Yeah,
needs to
they're-
be on is on?
Okay, so, yeah, Lerman and Martinez and Roger Schlicht.
Oh, Roger's on that one, okay. Okay, next is continuing old business. This is the matter of Jason Martinez and Erica Lerman. It's an application to permit the construction of a retaining wall which exceeds the permitted height and to propose to replace and widen the existing driveway to 22.25 feet where 20 is permitted at 110 Sheridan Terrace, block 2106, lot 8 in the R110 zone. This is being continued from November 24th without further notice.
Chairman, I guess now that Roger's on the matter, I have
All right, so record shows Ms. Rule is recusing herself.
thank you. Good luck, guys.
Thanks.
Thank
We
you.
still have 6. So Roger, we have Diana recused herself and Mike Pickles and Dan Perlman are out, but we still have 6. So we're good.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I believe everyone has the survey that was requested that represents the as-built condition today. It was completed by Galliano, Harris and Associates, dated September 3rd. And what RDS did is we received the AutoCAD file of this and did a zoning study to answer some of the questions that came up regarding the site. And That's basically documented on drawing V1.
Hey, Roger, just a second. Were you sworn in last meeting?
No,
No, I
I
don't.
don't think so.
No,
I think I
so
just
let's just cover the record. Raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
And Roger, you're on video, correct?
Yes, I am.
Okay, good. I see it. Okay, good. Thank you.
Thank you. So RDS did a zoning study based on the survey, updated survey. And I'll just point out 4 components that affect the application. The lot is an undersized lot. It's 18,010 square feet, while 19,250 is required. So it's deficient by about 6.5%. And that's due to the width of the lot. The lot is 100.28 feet, while 110 is required. So it's just slightly under 10 foot in width, undersized. In doing the zoning study, I think it was, I don't know who asked last time. I think Gary. The improvements resulted in a lot coverage of 18.6 and 19.1. So they're both below the maximum 20 lot coverage. And improved lot coverage with the proposed driveway is 30% and 30.3% over 140 feet, both well below the 40% max. So we really don't have any coverage issues here with the structure or the proposed increased footprint of the driveway. Last hearing, you received a survey of the existing house, and after I joined the application last time we were being heard, I went back and looked at the existing driveway. Interestingly enough, the existing driveway, based on the last survey, was 22 feet 1 inch at one location, 21 feet 1 inch. It's a very irregular shape on the left-hand side, but straight on the right. 20 feet 6 inches, and then it throttled down as it got closer to Sheridan Terrace to 16 foot 11 and 16 foot 10. And then at the street, it was 20 foot 7. So other than the 16 foot where it bellied in, this driveway was basically 21 feet average between the front and the back of the driveway, just as a reference point. So the proposed driveway, which is shown on drawing V1, proposes to have a width of 22.25 feet, while 20 feet is allowed, for a distance of 40 feet off the front of the garage, which is shown with a dimension on the left-hand side. And that is based on the number of cars that the applicant has between husband, wife, kids, and everyday relatives that come. So they basically have room to put 1 car in the garage, 1 bay, and the other bay is used for bikes, garbage cans, all that kind of stuff. So they have 3 cars outside, and they want to have 1 spot where someone can pull in without blocking the other cars in. So you can see that we basically determine that 40 feet by the size and maneuverability of the cars and wherever they would park. And then one correction is under the word proposed driveway, we dimensioned 20.60. That would actually be 20 feet wide, which is allowed. That was the dimension of the upward curve of the curb cut that was put in. The lower part of the curb cut where it comes down is 20 feet, and we would align the remaining part from that 40 feet to the street with 20 feet, which is allowed based on the width of this lot. So the variance is really for the part that the 40-foot run, and you can see a slight dashed line on the left. It's basically where the driveway was. We're kind of straightening it out on the left. In my opinion, very de minimis little triangular spaces And then once we hit the 40 feet, we're conforming. So it's not very different than what was there. It's, if the lot was a proper width, we'd be very close to being compliant. But due to the lack of a width, and the existing garages, the driveway, and I think that's most times, Paula and Tony approve the width of a driveway bigger if it's addressing a 2-car garage. But the 40 feet, I guess, is the dimension the board wanted to see that wasn't present at the last hearing. Before I go off to the retaining walls, I can answer any questions about the driveway.
Okay, thanks, Roger. So the driveway, and I'll just say right or left rather than, using the direction. So on the right side, it's not getting any wider, correct? That
Correct.
line is remaining. And then on the left side, what was kind of a little bit of a free form look is now going to be just a straight run from that corner of the garage to the street. So we're going to end up with a rectangle.
40 feet, you see the 40-foot dimension from the garage to where that round circle is?
Yep.
We actually go from 22 feet to 20 feet.
Right.
So we do curve it in.
Yeah,
It's
so
not a straight run.
So Roger, that curved dotted line that you can kind of see where next to where car is, it almost touches the bottom of it as it curves in. That's going to be the curve of the driveway, right? At 20 feet, or no?
Dashed line?
That line that's there, or no?
Solid line. Yeah, that's the edge of the driveway.
Oh, I see it. It's right where the line is with the 2 arrows.
Yeah.
Comes in.
The curve is what's going away, right, Roger?
The dash line is what was there.
Gotcha.
Back in the day.
Okay.
One question, Roger. You said 22 feet. Your drawing shows 22 feet, 3 inches?
22.25.
3 inches.
Yeah, so how that was arrived is the walk off the front porch is there. It's a new walk. So that's where we started there. And the right corner of the garage is where the driveway is now. So we lined it up with the corner of the garage. So there's no, we didn't make it triple wide. How some people make a parking spot to the right. We kept it pretty much aligned with the garage.
Oh, I just wanted confirmation that you said 22, but you want 22.3.
22.25. Yeah, that's what's in the schedule.
Okay.
So then the surveyor had done, go ahead, sorry.
I just want to make sure no other board members have questions on the garage, on the driveway, I'm sorry. No? Being none? All right, go ahead, Roger.
So the surveyor had documented top of wall and bottom of wall in the spots that you see with the boxes. And we just did the math, and in the schedule, you can see that there are 4 locations that the walls exceed 4 feet. Going from 4'1", 4'6.5", 4'7", and 5 feet in one location. And then there are 7 locations that the setback which is supposed to be equal to the height of the wall, are not in compliance. So in the schedule, you could see there's a 3'10" high wall with a 3'3" setback. And you could just go through the 7 locations. There's a 5-foot wall with 3'3" setback. So, the setbacks don't equal the height of the wall. So this is an as-built condition that the applicant will explain, how it came to be. I just wanted to, clearly document for the board what was going on out there with the input from the surveyor. I do know, because I was a resident 2 doors down, that this particular part from Heights to Monroe, it has a really steep slope. And when I lived there, we flattened out the backyard for the kids with a wall. So there is topography here. There was topography here that was very steep. And we always had kind of uphill neighbors who dispersed water to downhill. And we tried to solve that when we did our wall. And I think the applicant's going to speak to how this also addressed water movement or controlling it. Peter from the engineering department was out there. They put in a seepage pit, which wasn't required, just to try to control the water. So there was some existing topography, and then there are some water management issues that I think everyone in this general neighborhood is benefiting from. So there are reasons why I think a wall was required, but Erica and Jason can explain how it got built and how we got configured in this way.
Sure. Hi, everybody. So I guess as a recap of our last call, to give you the background on the wall, we had just finished construction of our renovations on the property, which Roger had helped us with. And during construction, there was a lot of runoff to our southwest neighbor on Monte Vista and also to our west neighbor on Sheridan Terrace, which was basically channeling water into both of their properties. So during construction, we actually had a conversation with the southwest neighbor on Monte Vista and have been trying to mitigate water. As Roger said, we put in a 350-gallon tank closer to our eastern neighbor, to try and mitigate runoff. But the idea was that the retaining wall would also help hold up the soil and prevent the streams from forming in our backyard. The backyard is somewhat leveled. It's not totally leveled because we still are lower on our, if you're looking at the map on the left side, but also east of directional. So it's higher over there. So there's still a grade to our backyard, but we were attempting to mitigate it. In building the wall, we were relying on our contractor, really. It was the same group of contractors and subcontractors that helped us with our renovations. And it was really after the fact, after the wall was built, that it was brought to our attention by Peter in the engineering department that we needed a permit and it was not pulled by the contractors and that we were out of compliance with zoning. So I don't know, do you want to add?
Well, he just suggested after inspecting the wall that we apply for the variance.
Mm-hmm.
It's hearsay, I don't want to speak for Peter, but that was his suggestion after observing the wall and inspecting the wall.
Mm-hmm.
It makes sense. Is that any additional testimony on the wall, Roger, before we open it for questions?
No, but I think, in asking for a variance, topography is one of the categories where you can justify what they did. I know it was not intentionally done that way, but I think there's a real benefit to how this wall was constructed and help. And Peter actually agreed with the water management in the abutting neighbors' yards.
And just to make a quick point, the area that's below the wall on the west and southwest neighbors is we've brought in Riverstone. So all of that surface is designed for, it's permeable, it's designed for better seepage onto our own property so that we didn't have this issue of water running from our property onto our neighbor's property as we do now on the east side. Where our neighbor's water runs into our.
And then the neighbor to the west, downhill neighbor, has a pool and they put in like a row of 6 foot, 8 foot arborvitaes. So they don't even see the wall.
And they have a 6-foot fence also, yeah.
They have a chain link fence. So those are the neighbors that really would be negatively impacted by the wall, but they've on their yard, they have a very deep evergreen row. And I don't think they're here tonight to complain, but I believe they don't really have an issue with the wall, but we'll see if they are going to speak.
All right, board members, any questions?
What is the existing slate walk that crosses a property line?
So we believe, we're not positive, but we believe our property was partially deeded to the property that is, I believe it's 110 Heights, directly east of us originally, and that we were subdivided from it because that comes from their driveway down to our property. So it's very old stairwell. Basically, it's like 3 or 4 stepping stones down.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question for the applicant about this wall.
Go for it.
Can you hear me well?
We can.
Okay. You stated that you considered this project of building the wall, and I see the need for it, but you engaged this whole activity with no contact to the village, no inquiries about permits. You just met a contractor?
We were under the understanding we had hired a general contractor and we had tons of permits pulled at that time when it was discussed. And in our discussion with our general contractor and with the subcontractor, we were told that we didn't need permits. So we were relying on their guidance and have learned after the fact that their guidance was not accurate.
So let me caution the board right now, and you've been faced with this before, that someone seeks a variance after the fact, meaning that someone has already built the improvement that is now being the subject of a variance request. You have to look at this as if it was never built. You have to judge it. You have to make a determination and decision as if it's not there now. And the fact that it's been built without a permit cannot go into your decision making. That's case law.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that contractor still around?
John, it's superfluous.
Okay.
And it's questions that have no bearing on the merits of the case.
I have a question. If we had because it's coming before us now, as far as the wall and, there's heights there that are above what the, I guess, maximum requirement is without a variance. Just the reasoning behind why. I don't know who we would ask that question of.
Why the heights are?
Why they're 5 feet when they're only allowed 4 feet? I mean, because the wall's already there, but I'm not supposed to be taking that into consideration. If you're asking for a wall that was 5 feet high when 4 is the maximum, just why it needs to be. I'm assuming it's the topography, but I don't.
Yeah. So if you look at the top of wall, the top of wall is pretty consistent. It's 96.06, 95.8, 95.5, 95.4, 94.7. The top of wall that they built is consistent. What's creating the height is the kind of active topography at the bottom of the wall, the natural topography that we don't see from Levon's property, but it's really the neighboring property. All this from Heights down to Monroe, the back right corner of the properties are the low end. It's not like a rectangle that's just leaning one way. It's kind of twisted to the corner. So
And Monte
and there's
Vista
a
is
tree
lower
there
than
too. They
Sheridan.
want to save a tree. There's a tree there.
Okay.
So if you stand up on top, it looks flat, or it's pretty flat within a foot. But it's the natural topography that is at the bottom of the wall that causes the 5 feet.
Okay.
It's not as if we created a 5 foot wall and a flat piece of property.
Right.
We created a flat top wall and just let the natural topography do what it was doing.
Well, you guys graded it. It wasn't flat like that before. So,
Right.
They graded it to be 5 feet high off. I guess my other question would be the decision of the placement of the wall. Why is it, I guess maybe my question to the applicants would be, were you aware that you had to have the wall a certain distance from the property line?
No, in our conversation with the GC, he actually told us that we could put it on the property line. And
I recall that. But...
And our neighbors directly to our west on Sheridan Terrace actually have an existing fence, so we couldn't do that because it would be abutted to the fence. So we decided to have this, permeable area that could be cleared of leaves and things of that nature, that was wide enough for us to walk and clear the leaves and things of that nature. That is River Rock. We also, as Roger had said, where it kind of bumps back into the yard there's an existing tree, which is probably 100 years old. We didn't want to remove that tree. So that was also part of the consideration of why that comes in so wide there.
Okay.
And we were also, the beginning of the wall was an existing, if you remember my testimony from the first call, was an existing wood structure. That's probably on the original survey. Actually, it is on the original survey. So we were also taking that original line and we extended it from there.
Okay. All right. I don't have any further questions at this point.
Any other board members, questions on the wall?
I have one. And I looked at the wall today, and so I can understand why it's where it is and all the rest of that. I guess my question is, you now have a de minimis space, if you will, 2.5 feet, 3 feet wide, that in some locations is upwards of 5 feet deep. And I question, and this is more for the owners, what is your intention in terms of the risk? If somebody were to step off that wall into a 5-foot crevice, that's 3'3" wide, you wouldn't even know they were there until it started to stink. No, I'm not trying to be funny here. It's a concern, and I'm just looking at it. It doesn't have much to do with the decision on the wall per se. That'll be decided on its merits. But I'm just wondering, is somebody going to come back through the door 6 months from now and ask for a fence?
I advised Erica and Jason that a fence wouldn't be allowed to be put on top of the wall because you would have to add the two together. So the fence would have to be, if it's a 4-foot fence, it'd have to be 4 feet back from the wall. So they are aware of that.
All right, I just want to make sure they were aware of that.
Yeah, we talked about that.
That's all. I just want to make sure they were aware of it.
Any other board members, questions? No questions. If you are a member of the public and you would like to ask questions, now is the time. Please raise your hand.
I'm showing none.
Roger, you can have any additional testimony. If not, I'll open up for public comment as well.
No, I think, with the lack of the lot width, the driveway is a variance, but would be just compliant if the lot width was of proper width. And I think the topography has a lot to do with the height of these walls. And, we've talked about how the walls ended up there. But I think they do serve a purpose to the downhill neighbors. And, the applicant's trying to mitigate the water movement, actually putting in a seepage pit. It shows a good neighborly act. So I think there are benefits here that would outweigh any negative impact, considering the neighbors' bushes that are along that wall as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Members of the public, if you'd like to make a comment on this application, now is the time. Please raise your hand. Dylan will let you in.
I'm showing none.
Okay, then the hearing is now closed and we can open it up for board member deliberation and or a motion. Board members.
Mr. Chairman, I would just like to offer an observation that if there is a need for a retaining wall, which there appears to be, and if we have to consider this issue as it not being there, then it should be correct in its construction and its size and width and position. It should meet code. And the village is not responsible for the actions of contractors if they do not meet code. But this wall is indeed needed. I can see that, but it should be to code. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
So I certainly, just to take off the driveway first, I don't have any issues with the driveway. I like that they were willing to sort of go back to the curb cut, right? And have it curve in. When it comes to the wall, I think that, there's parts of it that are conforming. And there are a couple parts of it that aren't conforming. Personally, I looked at it as well, and I think it is, based on the topography there. And they didn't put it on the property line. So I don't have an issue with the wall being where it is and the different heights in it. I do, have the same concern that Gary mentioned around there is a drop there, but the property owners know it's there and they know if they want to do something with that when it comes to fencing, that it would have to be 4 feet from where the existing wall is and be at 4 feet in height. So I'm okay with both variances based on the testimony today.
Okay. Isaac, Matthew, any additional color?
No.
Nothing really. My opinions are the same as Greg's. Basically, they also have stated that they put in an additional seepage pit that was not required to help with runoff. So I think the topography merits the use of this wall for that variance, and then the width of the lot merits the driveway as well.
Gary, anything additional?
No, I'm ready to make a motion.
All right, go for it.
I make a motion to approve the variance for the widening of the driveway. The amount is de minimis, and it's based on the lot being somewhat substandard in width. And the wall for its height in excess of 4 feet because of the topography on the downhill side of the wall. The top is essentially level, and the contribution actually to the adjoining community is very positive in controlling runoff.
Do you have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Greg Brown,
Yes.
Gary Negritz,
Yes,
John Petro,
No,
Isaac Lebo,
Yes.
Matthew Bandel,
Yes.
Chairman Allegra.
Yes. You're approved.
Thank you.
Before you go, and not to sound like your parents, but going forward, do not listen to contractors where they tell you, don't worry, you don't need a permit. It is much easier to ask for permission than forgiveness, as you've seen. And honestly, you got lucky because of the topography of the property that the variance actually, you met your burden of proof, but you could have been in a very unlucky situation where we would have been forced because you didn't meet your burden to deny it, and now you would have been having to rebuild the wall. So as silly as it sounds, if you do any more work to your house, talk to the people in the building department. They won't steer you wrong. And you
We
won't
know
have
them
to
well
come
now
before-
too.
All right. Sorry to sound like your dad, but
It's okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
all right. Take
And thank
care.
you, Roger.
Thank you, Roger.
What we went through 2 applications. We've got 2 more. Why don't we take maybe 5-6 minutes? Come back with the Del Calzo matter.
Have a great
Thank you.
evening.
All right. Good night.
Good night.
One moment.
Okay, we start making our way back, please. Diana, if you can hear us, we're
I'm back.
There we go.
I'm back.
Jay and Dylan, do we have the parties on the line? Whoever needs to be on. We can't hear Jen.
Who's next?
It's Del Calzo and Roger Schlicht.
It's Roger again. Sorry, Diana.
That's okay. I have plenty to do.
We should have moved Evans up, and then this way Diana
It's
could
okay.
have.
The fact that we're home, it's okay. I can go do other stuff. So,
All right. So we'll see.
but I'm excusing myself. Thanks, Roger.
Roger, are you on the Evans matter too? Just curious. No. Okay. So sorry, Diana. You've got to come back for that one.
Yeah.
All right. So Del Calzo, let the record reflect. Diana Rule has recused herself. Robert and Jennifer Del Calzo, this is an application to permit the construction of a first floor addition, second floor addition, and new covered open front porch, which will result in a front yard setback of 34 feet to the porch and 39.2 feet to the house where 40 is required. Combined side yard setback of 22.8 feet where 24.3 feet is required. Coverage by above grade structures of 22.3% where 20 is permitted, and a gross building area of 37.9% where 35% is permitted at 645 Doris Place, block 4304, lot 12 in an R2 zone. This matter is being continued from November 24th, 2020 without further notice. Mr. Schlick, good evening again. You're muted.
Sergio, we have our attorneys also on. He's Doug Standriff. I don't know if Dylan can let him in.
Sorry about that. Yeah, let's let him in.
I can make that happen. Here's Doug.
All set?
Mr. Standriff, can you hear us?
Thank you, Dylan. Yes, I can.
All right, great. Who needs to be sworn in here?
I think Roger was probably sworn last meeting, but you can swear me again.
Roger, if you raise your right hand, you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth and nothing but the truth.
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Mr. Whitaker, Douglas Standriff, Standriff, on behalf of the applicant.
These are revised plans that have been submitted. So Roger, why don't you explain what the changes are?
Okay, we're looking at drawings dated January 12th, 2021. Drawings V1, V2, V3. So we had presented in November of last year and we listened to the board's comments, and I feel we've made some pretty significant changes in response to those comments. I'll take you through some of those and then go through the remaining variances that we're seeking tonight. So I'll reference the November set versus the January set. The November set was last year, January this year. So I'll go through one by one. The front yard setback to the front porch in the November set was 33 feet. We've decreased the depth of the porch to increase that setback to 34 feet. So we went from a 7-foot deep porch to a 6-foot deep porch. The front yard setback to the garage in the November set was 34.1 feet. It is now a compliant dimension of 40 feet. So we pushed it into the depth of the property, 5.9 feet. How we did that was, one, we eliminated the sunroom that was in the back of the house that the board felt was kind of an accessory space that would reduce the variances that we were requesting in November. And then we also reduced the size of the mudroom and the powder room. So we just pushed the garage in to become compliant with the existing house and the existing setback. And then we actually removed 6 feet of the existing house in the back. So we're going to be ripping out foundation. And we removed 2 feet on the right-hand side of the house, just to further reduce the footprint. So by pushing it, eliminating the sunroom, cutting off some of the existing house, and then reducing the 2 remaining spaces, we're able to have a conforming setback. And these will be, these are actions that will reduce the gross building area and the lot coverage, which I'll speak to. Then the last was the front yard setback to the house itself. In November, it was 40 feet, and tonight we're seeking 39.2 feet. And I'll explain that when I go through the plans. Once we kind of flushed everything out, it became a 2-story box. It didn't have any dimension. So upstairs, I'll explain when we go over the second floor plan, we just pushed out 2 walls, 9 inches or 10 inches, just to give the box some dimension. So that was purely an architectural gesture that requires a variance of 10 inches. Then the combined side yard setback in November was 21 feet, and the existing house today is 21 feet. By removing the right-hand side of the house, the existing house, we've increased the combined side yard setback to 22.8 feet. So we're still not compliant, but we've actually reduced the pre-existing non-conforming condition. In regards to lot coverage, the November proposal was 24.9%, and the January proposal that you have in front of you is 22.3%. So we reduced the request by 2.6%. That represents about a 50% reduction of the original design variance request. So we really worked hard to really cut that number down by 50%. We reduced the width of the house by 2 feet. We reduced the depth of the house by 11'10" on the right-hand side. And as I mentioned, we did that by eliminating the sunroom, decreasing the size of the mudroom, the powder room, and the porch. So all the proposed additions were reduced, as well as cutting off parts of the existing house. So we approached it pretty aggressively and tried to bring this down to a number that, based on the deficiencies of the lot, I think align with the request for 22.3%. In regards to the gross building area, which is the last variance, in November, we asked for 42.4%. And in the January application, it's 37.9. So again, we reduced it by 4.5%. So we were previously asking 7.4% over the maximum GBA. And the plans that you have tonight are 2.9% over the max GBA. So again, that was a pretty significant reduction. Almost, 60%, 7.4 to 2.9. And we tried to pull in and reduce and eliminate rooms just to get this to a number that we feel is in line with the pre-existing non-conforming size of the lot. So we removed 371 square feet. In comparison, we're over GBA by 325. So we removed a little bit more than half of what we were exceeding in GBA. The garage is 302 square feet. It's an attached garage. Due to the lack of the depth of the lot, we had talked and discussed possibly doing a detached garage, which if you remove this garage, this house is compliant within 23 feet of the undersized lot. So, my point is that the attached garage, because we need to have a garage, we really don't have an alternative to do a detached because of the lack of the depth of the lot and the tightness of either side. Then I'd like just to repeat some of the existing zoning conditions that exist on the lot today that are affecting these variances that we're requesting. The lot area is 20% undersized. It's 8,395, while 10,500 is required. The lot depth is 115 feet versus 140. So we're lacking 25 feet, and that's goes to the reason why we can't really build a detached garage. The lot width is 2 feet narrow, it's 73, while 75 is required. And as I mentioned before, the house itself, the pre-existing house, has deficient combination side yard setbacks of 21 feet, while 24.3 feet is required. And that's the one that we actually increased by cutting off the right-hand side of the house. So the variance justification would fall under a C1A relief with the undersized lot area, depth and width, and then also a C1C based on the existing house, which would go towards the front porch because we're building it on the front of the existing house. And I always do this myself, but I'll just put it out there. If the lot was a proper size, this design and these numbers that we're presenting would represent a lot coverage of 17.8% and a GBA of 30.3. So well below the maximum 20% and well below the maximum 35%. So we feel that we addressed the board's comments from November. A lot of the concerns was the garage. I'll go through the plans just to show you how we feel we're down to kind of a minimum first floor kind of list of rooms. And then the second floor, we have a 4-bedroom, 2-bath plan. But due to the deficiency of the lot, the 2% over in the lot coverage is less than what the lot is deficient. And likewise with the GBA. If you take a look at drawing V2, so in regards to the just general list of rooms, we have a garage, a mudroom, a powder room, a kitchen, a family room, which are not huge, what we call great rooms. There's no breakfast area. The dining room is going to be everyday dining as well as holiday dining. So we've eliminated the sunroom and we made the porch smaller. We feel like the porch is an important architectural element just to break up the box because we've pushed that garage flush. But we're down to like the primary spaces, in my opinion. There's no accessory spaces left. And then upstairs, it's 3 children's bedrooms with a shared bath, a master suite that we've compressed all of these. We've made every room smaller, both rear bedrooms, the master bedroom, and then the other secondary spaces. And then
I didn't get that. Could you try again?
Mr. Del Caso has some kind of neighborhood analysis of other homes in the neighborhood in regards to falling in line with the size of the home that we're proposing and also the element of a front porch. Rob?
Yeah, you want to, can I screen share? Would that be?
Mm-hmm.
Roger's testimony completed. Questions of Roger, then take on the next witness. So,
Sergio, you're on mute.
Roger, did you have anything else to say? Or did you plan on speaking after the porch?
Only to respond to any questions.
Okay.
All right. Board members, any questions?
I have one, and I apologize. I was not at the last meeting. The existing home, Roger, most of the foundation, except for what you testified to tonight, the rest of the foundation remains?
Yes, we're cutting off the right side
I see that.
and the rear right corner.
And those existing walls above the foundation remain?
Yes.
Thank you.
If there are no board member questions, we'll open up to the members of the public. If you're a member of the public and you have any questions for the architect, please raise your hand and Dylan will let you in.
I'm showing none.
All right, there being none. So Mr. Del Calzo, I believe you are next.
Yeah, if I could just share.
Mr. Del Caso, I'm not sure, I wasn't at the last meeting if you were sworn in, but I'll have you raise your hand now. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
If I could just share my screen. I have two. Roger, I thought you were doing this, so I didn't have it ready. I'm sorry.
You know, Rob, I'm not sure that the board had really any questions for Roger, so.
Well, I think Rob explained how you got the information.
Yeah, I looked, one of the concerns last time was about the size of the house, and I did a little comparison of what our numbers are compared to houses within our 200-foot range. And some of them are actually within our 250-foot range. Our house really is not going to be oversized compared to those. Maybe the previous house we proposed was a little bigger, but if I could just bring those up real quick. You guys can see this. This house, 636 Doris, is directly across the street from us. That's 41.38%. We're asking for 37.89.
All right, so hang on, let's do this one at a time. First of all, can you make your screen a little bigger? Maybe just zoom in a little bit.
Yeah.
All right, very good. All right, so okay, so yeah, good. You've got the lot size on there as well.
Yeah,
All right, so go ahead. Why don't you walk us through it?
Mr. Del Caso, just for the basis of your testimony, give us the basis and foundation as to how you created this chart.
Yeah, so the square footage is from the tax records. And the garage is from the property record card.
Okay.
All the information is from the property record cards.
Thank you.
As you can see, 636 Doris, that's directly across the street from us. They're at a 41.38. 621 Al-Anon. Both those two are within 200 feet of ours. They were on our 200 feet list. They're at 35.58. The remaining 4 are within 250 feet of our property. They didn't require us notifying them, but they are very, very close to us. These are all above the allowable in our zoning. You can see the square footages are very similar. We're not going to be monstrous compared to everything in our neighborhood. We feel we're going to fall in line with them. The other thing I put together is porches. This is our house right here with the star. You can see our neighbors have a porch across the street, has a porch across the street.
Rob, you got to reshare the screen.
Oh, sorry. Stop share. Can you see that now?
Yes.
So you can see there's a couple of porches. I mean, these are all houses within a few feet of ours that all have porches just like we're proposing. So that's it. That's all I had to say.
Thank you. Board members, any questions? Being none, is there any member of the public who has a question for Mr. Del Calzo? If so, please let Dylan know. He'll let you in.
I'm showing none. Sergio, did you hear me?
Dylan, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
You're frozen.
Huh.
I can hear you. So
yeah, there's
was there
none.
any member of the public that had any questions? Okay, great. Thank you. All right, back to you, Roger.
There is hardship here. I've, repeated the testimony from last month regarding the lot size, lot depth. I think we aggressively tried to address the board's comments. We did significant reductions, and I think with the Rob's analysis of what's around this neighborhood, I think this will fit right in. And there are grounds for approval based on the C1A and the C1C relief.
Mrs. Standriff, anything else before we close the hearing?
Just in support of Roger's comments, the applicant really did listen to the board's comments from late November, and they reduced significantly the proposed addition. So we ask that you vote in favor. Thank you.
Thank you. You know what? I opened it up for public question. I didn't open it up for public comment. So if you're a member of the public and you have a comment on this application, please raise your hand and we'll let you in.
I'm showing none.
All right, thank you. So the hearing is now closed and we could open it up for deliberation and or motion. So board members, thoughts?
Well, my opinion is, number one, they responded. The last design was, in my opinion, overwhelming. This one is more appropriate for the property, and the studies that was provided showed it's consistent with the adjoining streetscape on lots of similar size. And so I think it fits, and I would approve it.
Thank you. I mean, I'm kind of on the edge. I see the justification for it. I think they did do a very good job of coming back with a significant revision. But just because you've asked for the world and then come back and ask for half the world doesn't mean you automatically get a variance. I do think on balance probably met the burden of proof, but I'm curious to see what other board members think.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you, Sergio. Just looking at the house to the left, it's a single story home, and what the existing house is on that property, you're going up 20 feet, 15, 20 feet from what the existing structure is. It would seem it's just a lot of the air and space, even though they cut back a lot of it. It's up on both sides. And, if every house on that block is like this one, you lose a lot of the air and space. I just don't know if these lots were really intended to have a house that size. They did a nice job, and, I'm sure it will look nice. It just, from looking at some of the other homes in the area, I mean, yes, I understand there are some homes that exceed what the zoning requirements are now. I don't know when they were approved, but more than likely, a lot of those wouldn't have been approved if they come in before us now. So just because they were doing it doesn't necessarily make me feel good that we're, going to approve another house that's similar in size, maybe slightly less, but similar in size. That's my feeling.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to follow along those lines, your comment, and Mr. LeBeau. This home is on a smaller piece of property, understandable, so there are some limitations. But at 35% coverage, it could be increased almost 100% from what it is and still be within village requirements. And that's more than 2,800 square feet of house. The applicant's asking for more than 100% increase and well over 3,000 square feet. So while I recognize the changes that were made, I can follow your thinking. It was the moon, and now you want a large piece of that section of town. And I also see where other homes there are larger, and that survey shows that most of them are also way over. So it was a fine effort to get it to where it is, but it's still way too much. And that towering 30 feet of roof line is a major issue. Other homes in the area I've looked at myself, they are tall. I'm not sure they all go up to 30, but that 30-foot roof line is a function of that enormous second floor. So as much as they've tried to be closer to compliance, I don't see any cause or reason to go beyond the gross coverage to the extent they're asking for. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan. Matthew, thoughts?
I understand what you're saying in terms of it. It is still a large home. First of all, they did an excellent job bringing it down. I'm staring at my computer with both PDFs open and just comparing the size of the rooms and how much they shrank. The first rendition was just way too big for the lot. I do think they're at a bit of a disadvantage coming to begin with, in that they have an attached garage. So that 400 or 500 square feet, if that was, in most of the homes in Ridgewood, when that's an accessory structure, that would put them in an okay spot. So that's one of the things I'm weighing, because it is attached and they couldn't fit it anywhere else in the lot. So that puts them at a disadvantage on the gross building area. So I guess I could vote either way. Or I'm listening to your comments as well, based on it.
Well, this is a close one. Greg.
Yeah, I'm sort of similar mindset to Matthew. I think that it's it's that garage portion of it that sort of like has me hesitating a little bit. I think they did a great job of bringing it down. It was certainly way too big to begin with. I just wonder if, I'm sort of weighing myself if they've come back with a good plan, with something that they can do on the lot that's going to meet their needs. And it's not far over in some of these sort of situations. Certainly it's a bigger house than is sitting there currently right now, but it's not, substantially over. They're definitely on an undersized lot. So, it's, I'm just sort of weighing things. I'm not going to, state one way or the other right now. So.
Gary, you've heard us all. Just going back to you because we started with you. Any additional insight, or anyone else additional insight?
Well, I guess I think the point that's being made is that they could have 2,856 feet and not need a variance. To do that, they need to get rid of 144, 244, 3. They'd have to get rid of 350 feet.
Which is technically the garage.
Yeah.
Which I think Roger said was 380, if I remember, something like that.
Give or take. I mean, it's going to be 20 feet, 22 feet deep, and it's going to be 10, 12 feet wide. So, and I don't know, you could squeeze it in the back corner, but, and that would make the problem go away. But
Mr. Chairman, would you mind if I responded to that?
No, the hearing's closed.
Yeah.
So it's
There's two ways to look at it, right? On one side, you could say they're at a disadvantage for having the garage, and the other side, you could say this lot really is only meant to fit a 3-bedroom home, or you know, I think there's two ways to look at it.
And just Mr. Whitaker, just to reiterate, if we go forward 3-3, there's 6 of us eligible, right? Is a denial.
That is correct.
Right.
Just wanted to state that.
Good point, Greg.
So if everyone has deliberated, someone has to propose a motion.
Yeah, I think whoever feels strongly one way or the other, make a motion, and then we'll just have to, vote.
Okay, I'm going to make a motion to approve based on the house, or sorry, the lot being undersized in width and depth. And anything else that Bruce wants to add, or Gary? If Gary wants to second.
Bruce, you have enough to go based on Matthew's motion?
I've listened to the reasoning that everybody's given, and I can do a motion, I can do a resolution based upon the various comments, but as you vote, when you make your vote, give me again your reasoning for that, because some people gave reasons both ways.
I guess what I'm asking is, Matthew made a motion. Do we have enough in that motion in order to get a second?
Yes.
All right. Do we have a second?
I'll second it. And reason being is that it's an undersized lot based on width and and whatever else. That's kind of where I'm going with undersized lot.
Okay. So Greg Brown,
Yes.
Gary Negritz,
no.
John Pepetro,
No.
Isaac Lebo,
No. And the reason being the home, I feel that the home is still too large for the lot.
Matthew Bando,
Yes.
Chairman Allegra.
Yes. So that's 3-3, correct?
Correct.
Correct. Motion fails.
All right. It was a close one, but I think you understood our reasoning there.
Okay, thanks for your time. Good evening.
All right, everyone. Have a good evening. We've got one more this evening, one more application, and that is the Susan Evans matter. So Jane, Dylan, who needs to be on?
Susan Evans and Sia Mara.
The last one in a row.
Okay. All right. So this is the matter of Susan Evans. It's an application to permit the construction of a one-story addition, modified porch and modified patio, which would result in coverage by improvements within 140 feet of the front lot line of 5,778 square feet, where 5,600 square feet is permitted at 451 Stevens Avenue, block 4401, lot 40 in R2 zone. This is being continued from December 8th, 2020 without further notice. Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I want to thank the board for your feedback at our previous hearing. and for giving us the opportunity to come back with reduced areas for coverage by improvements for the first 140 feet. As a summary, where we left it at the previous hearing, the drawings dated June 24, 2020. At that time, we were seeking a coverage by improvements variance for the first 140 feet of 425 square feet, where the impervious allowed is 5,600 square feet, and the proposed was 6,025 square feet. The board's recommendation was to reduce the areas, specifically the patio area, and comply with the side yard setback. We listened to the board very carefully and made our compromises and revisions accordingly. So for today's hearing, the revised drawings dated January 11, 2021. We made a total reduction of 247 square feet from the areas presented at the previous hearing. As a result, the previous variance request of 425 square feet has been reduced to 178 square feet. So according to our chart, the required, the maximum allowed coverage by improvements is 5,600 square feet. The proposed now is 5,778 square feet, the difference being 178 square feet. Again, the previous one was 425 square feet. So I would like to go to page 2 so I can walk you through the reductions. We reduce.
Sorry, when you say page 2, you mean?
Variance 2 of our submission, the floor plan.
Got it. So that's VAR 2, and then the date you've got is?
Yes, thank you. Yes.
Okay.
So at the top where the deck is, we reduce the size of the deck stairs from 8 foot 2 inches in width. We reduce it to 4 foot 6, cutting 3 feet 9 inches from the width. This was a reduction of 19 square feet. The reduced stairs width allowed us the removal of the patio area at the bottom of the stairs. So you see the dashed line that was in front of the stairs, the full width of the stairs, that now we're proposing to remove. And the area of the patio is aligning with the new width of the stairs. We reduced the patio from 413 square feet to 235 square feet. We reduced it to almost half, taking off 178 square feet. We're now complying with the side setback of 10 feet for patios, eliminating the existing non-conformance that we had before. We are replacing the 105 square feet of the walkway. This is the walkway that is starting at the front of the house, and that connects the front patio with the front steps with the patio. And now you see the dashed line of the existing walkway. We're removing that and replacing with stepping stones. So what that does is stepping stones count as half of the square footage of regular pavers. So we reduce from 105 to 55 square feet. We're removing the back walk that as we described in the previous hearing, and that is a reduction of 133 square feet. So that is the total of reductions of all the different areas. And what we're planning to do is there is a dense vegetation around the patio area that we're planning to maintain. And we are planning to add plantings in place of the patio area that we're removing. It's worth mentioning that adjacent to our proposed patio is the next door neighbor's driveway and garage. So their house is far away and we're not impacting the next door neighbor negatively. And it's an on-grade patio that will be buffered by the dense vegetation, and it will not be visible from the street. The patio has no volume, it's an open air, and it will not impact the neighbors with for the natural light, the views, or privacy. Therefore, we believe the proposed patio does not represent a detriment to the neighbors. And I would like to remind the board also that we're asking, this is a single variance and it's only for the first 140 feet, because for the total lot, we are at 15.20%, well below the maximum allowable of 20%. So I hope that the board recognizes our efforts to make this significant reduction in the areas following your comments. With your approval, the homeowner will be able to enjoy the amenities of the property without impacting the neighbors, community, or streetscape. So we appreciate your consideration to approve this variance. And thank you for your time. I will be ready for questions from the board.
Thank you. And yes, you definitely came back with significant revisions, and we do appreciate that. I don't have any questions. I'd like to open it up to board members if they have any questions.
I have a question. So I just want to make sure I understand one thing. So the lot is properly sized or oversized in terms of area, width, and depth. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
You mean the size of the lot, the area?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So what's the basis that we're seeking the variance? Is it
we didn't have a hardship. So we said at the first hearing, we are doing this for basically improving the property and updating the landscaping and the hardscape.
Okay. And the, I guess the existing porch and slate patio that are off of the garage, which I guess count towards impervious coverage, that's remain. Sorry, you're hearing my dog snore in the background. That's remaining, is that correct?
Yes, that's remaining.
Okay.
So, but in essence, what we're doing is reducing the existing non-conforming areas.
Right.
So we're improving as far as the excess.
Yeah. Okay. That answers my questions. I don't have anything else to ask.
Any other board members' questions?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, just one. Following the thinking of the previous board member, Ms. Paredes, am I correct in presuming you've reduced all of the non-conforming conditions except what you're asking for as a variance?
I reduced the, yes, correct. In other words, yes, the patio, that was the main issue, was reduced significantly.
So all
And
of those non-conforming conditions, by looking at your calculations, they've been reduced and all that's left is what you're asking for. That little bit of
correct,
172.
correct. And in addition, I made the patio conforming because it wasn't to the
Yeah.
setbacks.
That had a side setback issue. Yes, I saw.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask
You're
a
welcome.
follow-up question? Just for clarity, last time you were only seeking one variance. Is that the same variance? Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
However, I just remember that it came up the fact that the 10 feet side yard, because we
I remember
had
that.
shown on the plans. Okay, so that's why I made the point to comply with the 10 feet.
Got it.
setback.
Thank you.
Any other board members with questions? If not, I'll open up to the public. There being none. If you are a member of the public and you'd like to ask a question, now is the time. Please raise your hand. Dylan will let you in.
We have no public.
There's no public. All right.
Everybody went to sleep.
Yeah. So just for the record, if there's any member of the public who wants to make a comment, now is the time. And we still have no public.
Still no public.
All right, very good.
Sir, can I ask Bruce a question?
Bruce, you on?
Yes, I'm here. Yeah.
Bruce, so this would have to be a C2?
Well, I haven't heard what it is other than what it wasn't.
Well, I
And I think
gather
you heard
that,
it's not a C1.
well, I haven't heard a justification for a C1. That's my, I guess my,
In the testimony, it said, for the basis for the variance, quote, "There's no hardship. It's improving the property and updating the landscaping."
that sounds like a C2, no? I'm asking, Bruce, I just want to make
It's not a
sure.
C1, and for C2, it has to have a public benefit.
Versus the
Where
removal
benefits
of
substantially outweigh the detriments for the public's benefit.
is the removal of an existing nonconformity a public benefit?
That's for the board to consider.
Okay, but we can consider that. The elimination
Absolutely.
of the side yard setback can be considered a public benefit if we see fit.
That's correct.
All
Right, but you can't look at it that way because we can talk about it in, sorry, because technically it's not supposed to be there. So the question is not removing it, is it in the public benefit? It's not supposed to be there.
However, that
So we have to
rule-
look at it as though it's not there. So the question is, how is it in the public's benefit to add 178 square feet to something that should not be there?
The only thing, Greg, the only issue is that rule with the 10 feet setback is a fairly new rule. And that's all, that's what
But
I'm
it
saying.
still shouldn't be there. It doesn't matter.
When it was
It's
put
not,
there,
it's technically not there. Based on, if we look back at what the old hearing was, and maybe we can close and we should deliberate, or we can keep it open and I keep talking, whatever you want to do.
Well, I want to keep it open because if we've got
If you wanna
questions that
answer.
can be answered, then.
So basically, if we look back at what happened when they submitted the plans last time, because they submitted building plans to the building department without the patio there, we have to treat it, and Bruce, tell me if I'm wrong, we have to treat it as though it is not there.
Right.
Meaning that there is no public benefit. There is no C1 benefit. There is no C2 because it's literally not there. Unless someone wants to make the argument that adding 178 square feet is in the public benefit here. I don't see that. It's not there. So the 10-foot rule doesn't come into play. It's literally not there.
Well, Greg, just along that line, I agree that adding the negative, if you will, is adding 178 feet. All right? But the positive would be reducing the coverage by improvement by over 300 feet.
But when they submitted the plans to the building department, they said it was gone. So, I mean, really the survey we should be looking at is a survey of what was submitted to the building, how it was going to look as the existing conditions.
You're right, but I just assume if I'm reading a chart and it says existing, that it includes everything that was on the drawing when they got the permit to do the addition. If I'm wrong, then of course that doesn't work.
Maybe she can clarify, is the existing what is currently built there, or what was submitted to the building department?
The addition is being built.
The existing.
But the patio is not in that 6,000?
The patio is on these drawings. Let's see. Coverage by improvements. First 140 feet. The slate patio is 300. We have it as existing 413 square feet. We have it as existing 413 square feet, and then the proposed is 235. So we have it as existing on the chart, and then the proposed is 235.
I guess what I'm asking, Perry, is when the drawing was filed to take out the patio and build the addition, there was a square footage, a net square footage that you were saying was going to be on the drawing.
Yes.
And did that include any patio on that side?
Not in the plans for the building department for the kitchen.
All right, but so that means the patio, as Greg said, doesn't exist. So what is the number with the patio not existing at all, just the addition?
It's 6,096 minus 413. So it's 5,683. 5,683 square feet. That is the existing minus the patio.
So that would mean then that this is not actually a reduction, it's an increase. 5,600 versus 5,700.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. This is the wrong one. Hold on. The existing 518 square feet. That's what it was. 500, so is 6096 minus 518. So we were saying at the first hearing, our existing patio, the patio and sidewalk, is okay. Let me get my thoughts straight here. So the patio, is 413, and we reduced the size to 235. So the difference is 100. That's what we're asking for, 178 square feet. Before, we were asking for 425 square feet. And that was with the patio included, the existing size patio included.
No, I guess the real question is, when you filed the drawings and got them approved for the addition, was there any patio or did you take the whole patio out?
We were taking the patio out, yes.
All right, so that means that if you took it out, then the number we're starting with is 6096 minus the patio. Because you already gave it away.
Yeah.
You gave it away to get the addition.
Mm-hmm.
So now our starting number is whatever the square footage of the patio was that you gave away to get the addition.
But
Am I making any sense?
I'm trying to remember. Let me see. That took me.
You can back into it the other way, which is you're asking for 178 square feet over, right? And you're required 5,600 square feet. And if the patio is 178 square feet, that would mean that when you submitted plans to the building department, you were at 5,600 square feet for maximum coverage by improvements within 140.
Right.
So
Okay,
now, so that means that patio doesn't exist, and you are asking us now for variance relief to add a patio of 178 square feet.
Yes.
Above and beyond what they're allowed.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Well,
it's not a C1 or a C2, in my opinion.
So your comments, your feedback at that time were, try to reduce as much as possible. And you must comply with the size setback. So we reduced it to almost half what we show. So our request for a variance is the 178 square feet.
So I will say that my notes, my personal notes from December 8th say no justification for C1 or C2 given. Now, I agree that we did talk about making it smaller or whatever, but it's up to you to essentially prove the case as to, you've already said it's not a C1, right? There's no hardship. So what we're struggling with, okay, so then what is the C2 justification for this patio?
If I can add, this possibly might help. We've in essence shrunken the patio to in essence serve as a walkthrough from the front to the back, because we have a door and we have a garbage area. So what we tried to do is limit the hardscape to allow access to the back door, so you don't have to walk on dirt or grass. and access for the garbage, the sanitation workers to the garbage area where they don't have to walk on dirt or grass to get to that area, and to allow egress from the deck to some sort of hardscape. But much beyond that, this patio is not much more than a walkway. We can't put a table. It's not going to fit. You know, we can't really do anything with it. We're just trying to make it a walkway that's attractive enough where it doesn't detract from, you know, the appearance of the house.
Yeah, the drawing you submitted dated January of this year shows a patio with a sofa, a table, and 2 chairs. So it's not just a walkway, it's a sitting area.
Well, in order to navigate through that theoretical furniture, which we're not going to put there, you really don't have egress. You know, it's very narrow. So in discussions with Ziamara, I've told her we're really not going to use this for anything beyond, you know, a walk through, then, you know, possibly some planters. We'll put some planters, you know, but we're not going to be using it for any entertainment. It's not big enough for entertaining. I don't know if that helps or not, but that's our, you know, requested usage.
I guess maybe a comment and question. You're looking for 178 square feet. And if you decided you wanted to keep this patio the way you presented it, but remove 178 square feet of something elsewhere, you wouldn't need a variance. Is that correct, Ms. Paredes?
Yes.
Okay. And I guess this is a question for the board or for Bruce. It is because it seems like we're definitely not struggling with the C1. There is no C1 justification. C2 is cloudy at best. But is because the change is de minimis, and does that come into consideration?
No, the de minimis part comes into the C1.
Okay.
The C2, the language in the C2 is that variance relief can be granted because there is a substantial benefit, the benefit being a public benefit that far outweighs the detriment. That's the statute.
Right.
But isn't also one angle of the C2 variance for aesthetics? Improving
If
the
the board
aesthetics.
determines that aesthetics benefits the public, because generally is looked upon as being a streetscape or modification architecturally to a building that's in a state of disrepair, or modifications to a front yard, placing a porch there, you've seen that already pretty easily, or modifications architecturally, you can look at a public benefit there, but the board has to make a determination if there's a public benefit to what's being proposed here for a patio and basically the side of the house.
Are there any additional questions by the board? If not, we'll open up for public questions. All right. Now is the time for members of the public to ask questions. If you have a question, please raise your hand. Dylan will let you in.
There's still no public.
Thank you. Just going through the motions, making sure it's all on the record. Okay, Ms. Paredes, any additional testimony before we, you can make a closing summary as well before we close the hearing and deliberate.
Thank you. Well, I would like to point out that we made a great effort. Even we removed part of the structure in the rear for the deck, the stairs from the deck. and we reduced the patio almost 50%. This patio doesn't, it doesn't represent any detriment to anybody, not the next door neighbors. And the owner just wants to improve that area of the property. Thank you.
All right, thank you. The hearing is now closed and we could deliberate and or make a motion. Board members?
Well, so if we don't have any type of, I guess, justification, are we allowed to approve it? I mean, I'd like to approve this because I don't find it's an issue, but Bruce, are we allowed to if we can't come up with a C1 or C2?
No, you can't. You've got to meet statutorily. You've got to meet the requirements in the statute. You've got to make a decision if the facts presented fall within one of those two categories.
Okay.
You cannot make a decision because you say, "Gee, I kind of like it."
Yeah.
That's
not
the
criteria in the statute, unfortunately.
I'd like to make a motion to deny. I understand it's 178 square feet, but there's no justification. They can remove 178 square feet from somewhere else in the property. There's multiple outdoor spaces, and I don't think it's necessary. So that's my justification for the motion to deny.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
That was Greg.
Yes.
All right, a yes
Okay.
vote is for a denial.
Greg Brown,
Yes.
Gary Negritz,
Yes.
Diana Rule,
Yes, I just wish there were grounds to justify it.
John Pepetro,
Yes.
Isaac Lebo,
Yes.
Matthew Bandel,
Yes.
Chairman Allegra.
Yes. Application is denied. All right.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you. Have a good night. All right, so we announced it already, but Trip is not being heard tonight. That's being carried to the 9th of February. There's no resolutions, right, Jane?
Right.
All right, so we have a couple, we ended at 10 o'clock, which is pretty amazing considering we have 4 applications. I want to just give the board members any opportunity if they want to talk about, you know, how we conduct meetings, things of that nature.
Well, actually, I thought your note today was spot on.
Yeah.
And I'm probably as guilty as anyone of doing all the wrong things, but I still happen to think that it was a good heads up. Hey, you know, we got to behave ourselves and do the right thing.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And by the way, under no, I'm under no illusion that I'm not guilty of those things myself. I just think that's something we all kind of, those things are things we all should just kind of every once in a while remember. And we initially had, what prompted this, we initially had 6 applications tonight. And they were all coming back, you know, at least 2, I think one was 3 times. And I just wanted to make sure that we don't clog up the calendar, right? We got a lot of people in the queue, I'm sure, Jane. I always ask Jane how many we have. And so I want to make sure we could doing it right, why we don't rush things, but we want to also make sure that we're moving things along as possible.
Yeah, to add to that, one of the things that I guess we do it to a point. I just want to make sure we do it in the future. And tonight, I think we did a good job with Fern regarding the garage, the upstairs, and making sure that I think we all agreed that we didn't want it to become a residence at some point in the future. So adding the deed, that was the right thing to do. I just want to make sure that if someone has an objection to a particular issue with an application that we, I guess, maybe, I don't know if we can just find out how the entire board feels before we force them to come back. I wasn't on the second Fern call, but like, for instance, the fence, I probably wouldn't have had an issue with it. It's fine, but I just want to make sure that we maybe have an open discussion on items that someone or multiple people are objecting to, so that if we have enough people to make a vote one way or the other, we don't force them to come back on it a third time or, second time or third time. I don't know if that's something we could do, Bruce.
Yeah. Let me weigh in just as an observer of the way you conduct your meetings and your decision making. You, for the most part, are right on point in focusing in on what the issues are, and you will tell a applicant what you have a problem with, and that's good because that gives me a foundation and a basis in making a decision. But as you know, the statute has two provisions: a C1 provision and a C2 provision. And every once in a while, not in criticism, but just to critique it a little bit, every once in a while, this board will try to come up with a C3 provision. It's not in the statute, but it's one in which you say, you've done a fine job and I'd like to compliment you on reducing it. So the problem with that, and I've seen it happen in other boards in other towns, the word gets out, go for the C3. Ask, and it was said tonight, ask for the world, and you may not get the world, but maybe you'll get most of it if you show them that you can reduce it. And Mr. and Mrs. Jones, if you really want that big of a house, let's make it a little bit bigger. And then when we have to reduce it, we'll get it back to where you really wanted it. And what it's really going to cost you is 2 to 3 meetings rather than 1 meeting, okay? And I say that to you, not disparagingly, but I say that to you to watch out for that, because the game's being played and I'm watching it happen. And you see the architects that come quite often are doing it. So, you could say, it's nice that you reduced it. You did it tonight. I was very proud of you because that tie decision, there's no, when you found that it was just too big for this lot and it was way over on a percentage, it's a percentage you never really play with, even compared with the size of the lot, there was still a hesitancy to say no. And I've said this to the board before. There's nothing wrong with saying no, okay? All our mothers told us once upon a time, more than once, right? No. You could do that. When you took your oath of office, it wasn't to say I will say yes or I will say no. I will look at the statute and come up with the reasons why I can say yes or say no. And I'll point one out, and not to embarrass you, but Diana, I wrote it down tonight. When you said in the last one, I wish there was a reason to approve it. If I went on an appeal, that would kill me, okay? So I would say if you've got a comment like that, it's just think about it before you say it, because it was spot on when you did say, when members did say, hey, there's no justification here under a C1 or a C2, and Greg led that charge. There was nothing there. I mean, I'm never a decision maker, but I sit there trying to see, when I listen to all your comments, where am I slotting this? Where am I slotting it? And the last application, the applicant admitted there's no C1. And frankly, the applicant's architect has no understanding of what a C2 is. Okay? It's not a private benefit. It's not. It's a public benefit, and it's got to be substantial, not just, the question comes out, isn't it aesthetics, isn't aesthetics a consideration? Well, maybe if the people, repainted their living room, it would look nicer, but that's not a substantial benefit. All right? So that's what you got to think of. So I think you've really got to weigh it, focus on what the issues are, and sometimes to move things along, as Serge suggested, when you say it's too big, don't take the next step and say this is what you should do, because the problem with that is if you come back and you still don't like it, it comes back in your face as, well, you told me this, and I heard that in the last hearing tonight. You wanted this done, you wanted that done. Just, I think saying to them, it's too big, it's got to be reduced, and then they say by how much, and that's that land use lawyers call it, the old Monty Hall approach. Well, let's make a deal, okay? You don't do that. That's not what a board does. Show me the new plan. That's what you have to do. And don't spend a lot of time, and you've said it, we're not here to redesign it, but sometimes board members, even though you say that, you go ahead and do that. So I know you're trying to be accommodating to the residents, et cetera. It will hurt you, especially if you make some suggestions and you've got people there in opposition. But even if there is no opposition, it's not your job to give them the redesign. Let them go back and do it. It's not, I'm the one that will instruct them as to what the law is, and I'm the bad guy that says, hey, you haven't met the criteria. And some people come in, they're not prepared for it, okay? We've seen that in the past, the pro se's. People who come without benefit of an architect that knows the law or the lawyer. I'm not saying any of this disparagingly, but I think a little bit more focus. And again, I'll say there's nothing wrong with saying no if they don't meet the criteria. Don't wrestle with that. Don't wrestle with that. Okay, there's some boards out there. In Bergen County. I can tell you that they probably come back with about 60 to 65% no's.
Wow.
Okay, so that's just my overview.
How do we handle the coming for forgiveness instead of permission?
Well, the law is very clear that you cannot put into your decision-making process that they did something without getting a permit. You have to look at it as if it's not there. Okay, I'm an applicant's attorney too. I know that all too well. Okay, I've had the builder that built a home in Saddle River, and when they got it all done, they looked at it, and it was 1.5 feet higher than it was allowed to be, and it was done. Okay, they had the proofs that they had to go through was granting an approval or a disapproval based upon what was there. We were able to show that it wound up happening because of unusual topographic conditions, but that's what you had to do. You have to picture it as if it's not there.
Did it get approved?
Yeah, it did. It did.
Cut your roof
It wasn't
off.
easy. It wasn't easy. It was about a $500,000 mistake.
No, but what we're getting is
Happened to be a slate roof.
We're getting a lot of pre-existing conditions that there's no proof that they ever got approval. And at some point, when do you say, I'm sorry, the answer is no, get rid of what's there?
The wall.
Hold on, I think that there's a distinction, right, between what we saw today, which is a wall, that they're coming for a variance for a wall, right, that's up, and they're asking for forgiveness, not permission, versus they're coming for a variance for something else, and there's something that exists on the property that perhaps is non-conforming, and we don't know why it's there. I don't know, Bruce.
Yeah,
I see those two different things.
You're doing very well with that. I know that Ridgewood doesn't have a lot of the old records with the Floyd situation, but when I do a case for an applicant and I see non-conformities, I ask the applicant right away, how come that's there? And the applicant says, I don't know, that's the way I bought the house. Well, the first thing I do as an applicant's attorney is I do an OPA request before I ever file an application. And I do that even if I look at a survey and I see that everything is conforming. I always get the OPA requests. You can see David Rutherford's doing that more and more.
Can I interrupt a second?
Yeah.
This is still public and this is still on YouTube. Is that okay?
Okay.
All right, just
Yep.
so you're aware.
Understand. Okay, thank you for that. Yes. Okay. But I think that's the concept you have to look at. When you look at somebody's that did something and didn't do it properly, you still got to put the same test as if it was never there in the first place. Okay.
Yeah.
And I know that's a hard thing to do. Any board member always has trouble with that.
Okay, and that's like what Sergio was saying, though, the distinction between someone building something and then coming asking for forgiveness versus coming for an application where we see there's some other items that happen to be pre-existing because they bought the house that way, and like you said, the OPA request could show or doesn't show that there was a permit pulled at some point in time.
Right.
that doesn't necessarily have to be taken into consideration for
No, it
us.
doesn't.
Okay.
But for a property owner, if they find out when you're going through the review that it was lawfully done, or there was a permit for it, or there wasn't, and you say it's okay, when you do the resolution, then you, and Diana has been saying, you justify that nonconformity, then it becomes lawful. So that's one of the things you look at.
So,
But
but
let's say, for example, today, the applicant that came for a driveway and the retaining wall. Let's just say hypothetically, different applicant, they come for a driveway. And we happen to see a non-conforming retaining wall that they have no history of that wall being built. There's tons of non-conforming retaining walls on the west side of Ridgewood, all over.
Yes.
Right? Do we just pretend that doesn't exist?
No, you can ask the question, what, do you have any information as to when the wall was built? And many of those walls on that side of town were built before the ordinance was passed. You can make a decision, a finding of fact that it's a pre-existing non-conforming condition.
But if we do nothing, right? Because let's say we just focus on the driveway, and the survey shows a wall, but we don't even focus on that. Does our granting an approval of that driveway somehow make that wall now conforming and approved?
No, not unless you've raised it. No, not at all. Not
But
at all.
I was referring more to the cases where they're asking for impervious coverage. So what they're adding is impervious coverage to already a non-conforming of impervious coverage. So that's where, Sergio, it does, by us saying, yes, the impervious coverage is okay at this, that we did approve the previous.
You're absolutely correct. You're
that's
justifying it if it happens to deal with the variance that you're dealing with.
Yes.
Right.
Okay.
No, I
So
get
when
that.
you're dealing with a driveway, you're not looking at a wall. But when you're looking at more impervious coverage, you just say, how did that patio get there? Then that's something that you're going to justify if you allow it.
And it's the same thing they're going for. And that's where I'm having issues, because there are a lot of people who don't pull any permits in this town. And so to me, the excuse is, well, I bought it that way. So great. Nobody should get a permit in this town, because you can have that excuse of, oh, I bought it that way. And that's where I'm struggling is, I understand, but there is a buyer beware. And that's why I wanted to put that in the deed restriction, because there is no excuse now for the next person or future people saying, oh, I didn't know I wasn't allowed to do that.
That's
By the
correct.
way, it doesn't help that in this town, to get a CO to sell your house, you do not need to show that the work that's been done to your house has been permitted. So in other towns, if you put up a deck illegally and then you go sell your house, you're not going to get a CO to sell that house if there hasn't been a permit. In Ridgewood, if you've got a fire extinguisher and smoke alarms, you get a CO.
But that
doesn't help.
That's a bigger issue that this town needs to address.
Yeah, it's not a zoning board issue.
Right, no, I understand.
Right.
But yeah.
But our job is, when we're approving these inconsistencies, we can make sure that they don't continue going forward. That was my rationale.
Right. And the only time you are justifying it or confirming that it's legal is if the subject of the variance that's in front of you pertains to what you also say, why is it there?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
But anytime you're making your decision, as I said earlier, and you've been doing it, is that I've given you the little, I call the synopsis of the statute, the C1 and the C2. And if you just have that, you can look and you can slot what your decision is and pick out some of the reasons why there. And I can supplement it by virtue of the testimony that's been given, even if you don't repeat it all.
We should have.
Well, I will say this. I've been in this town for 50 years. And when I moved in, I was amazed at what the building department knew about the home I was buying. All right? And you're right, Serge. Now it's nothing. But They came in, they could tell me, yeah, they changed those kitchen cabinets on this survey. That's the kind of knowledge they had then.
Right, but Gary, there were only 2 houses in town when you moved in. So.
No, it was a different world. Different world.
We should have the C1 and C2 as another little Zoom screen on our screen so we know what we have at all times.
Well, you all have my outline that I gave you. You still carry that and use it?
Yep.
All right.
But we don't have to carry anything anymore.
Well, that's right. But don't put it up on the screen.
So I just want to get back to Isaac's point earlier, which is, sometimes, now we have 9 board members, we have a full board. Sometimes it may be 1 or 2 people who have an issue. And we, as the chairman, I'm going to let everybody speak and raise their issues, but I can't oftentimes read the tea leaves and know that, hey, you know what, we've got 6 people that could approve this thing. And we end up sending them back to revise plans to deal with an issue that maybe only 1 or 2 people had. Bruce, is there any, because I can't poll the board.
You cannot take a consensus. That's up to the applicant. Yeah. That's up to the applicant to make that decision.
But people can speak up.
Tea leaves.
But if other members of the board feel strongly, they should speak up and say, I don't feel that way. And it's okay for us to disagree. This board is really good at having our own opinions, and we should say them.
Yeah.
Guys, if you don't agree with me, feel free.
Diana, I think that's
the
answer, right? So if you guys hear, Matthew going off on a tangent, and you hear me saying, okay, well, then I guess maybe we'll carry this thing, or that's kind of where it's going, and you don't feel that way, hop in and say, hey, you know what, particularly since, especially now with Zoom, I try to go around the horn and make sure everybody asks a question. If I say, Isaac, do you have a question? Or Greg, do you have a question? You can feel free to say, I don't have any questions, but by the way, I totally disagree with Diana. And if you hear that 5 or 6 times, then I'm not going to carry the thing. We'll go to a vote. And
I may be personally hurt, though.
Yeah, exactly. Look, we should definitely carry things that need to be carried.
Yeah.
But
I just hate to see, applicants come back. I mean, once would be nice, but, twice, any more than 2 times, it's just, unless it's something really complicated, I guess, just seems like it gets excessive and it just kind of grinds things to a halt.
Yeah, but you can't not permit them to come back more than twice. That's the way. And sometimes
I guess just being more efficient. If we can just
see revised plans come back that really weren't revised to what you want. So then you've got to say that.
Yeah, true. Okay. That's true. And it's,
Calendar-wise, everybody saw the email that the Y withdrew their application, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so Jane's going to set up other applications that night to keep us busy.
What night was that? I'm sorry. That was
the second one in February.
Okay.
If I recall.
Yeah, it was to the 23rd. So
yeah.
Do we have a backlog?
Do we what?
Do we have a backlog of cases?
We have about, other than the ones that I've already scheduled for February, there's still a dozen other applications, and I know of 4 more that are coming in. So it's busy.
Okay.
Jane, are there any I guess there's a holiday coming up. I think is it President's Day weekend in February? Is one of the meetings going to be coinciding with? Because I think it's like the middle of the week. Since we're here, our next meeting is the 2nd.
That's planning.
No, not the 2nd. It'd be the 9th, right?
9th.
And then the 23rd.
Right.
And I think, is the 23rd President's Day?
No, it wouldn't be on.
No, it's the week before.
It's always on a Monday.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, the 15th is President's Day, and so.
Okay, because I know that I think they coincide, like the schools coincide like a winter break. I that week. So I just, not that most
You
people are
don't have
going
to go to
anywhere.
Zoom that day?
I'll be skiing.
Oh,
All right.
one other thing, Jane, some of these people come in and they've got lots that have serious elevation changes. And, it makes a difference when you're trying to evaluate what they're trying to do or why they're trying to do it. And it'd be nice if you could just tell them, hey, look, you got a steep slope problem here. So yeah, you got 20,000 feet, but you can only use 10.
Well, Gary, one of the things that can be asked is to tell me what your topographic conditions are on the plan. That's a board member's proper question. Especially for those that have gone out and done a field observation.
It's just that, it just seems to me that if somebody's got substantial elevation changes, they should just come in with a topographic when they come in with their survey.
Well, that's something a board members can request as additional information. You can always do that.
All right.
I would suggest it would be something board members would want in connection with a specific application, because Gary, as you know, the topographic surveys are very pricey.
Cost money.
Yeah.
So Bruce, did you get a vaccine yet?
No. I'm on the list, but I haven't gotten it yet. No.
Did anybody get it?
I got my first one.
Yay, congrats.
Nice.
That's good. We're starting, so maybe in person in September.
I got the first one, and I get the second one on the 12th.
That's great. But is there any talk of in-person, Jane, at some point?
I haven't heard anything yet.
Bruce?
I've heard that most all towns said they're going through at least June. A couple of towns, I've heard people say that they're going to do it for the whole year on virtual. And there's a concern out there that even if a meeting goes back and is held, if people haven't all gotten their vaccination and haven't had the opportunity to get one yet, are they not being, isn't it thwarting them from being able to go to a meeting? So there may be something where even if there is a public meeting in a building, people could still access it virtually if they don't want to go into the building. It's all
there was something on the news.
It's all undecided yet, as far as I know.
But they were talking about it actually just the other day about having a dual function where if people didn't feel they could come to the meeting for whatever their personal reasons were, that they would be able to access them.
Yes.
Remotely. So I think it'll probably end up being a hybrid, even from June to the end of the year.
Yeah. Like I was saying to Sergio, with the snow out there today, if it was a little bit more, there would have been times meetings would have been canceled, but now there's no excuse.
Oh, well.
Yeah.
All right.
All right, guys. If no one has anyone else, we'll motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Good night,
Everyone take care.
Good
Right,
night.
guys.
Right.
Good night.
Thanks, Dylan. Thanks, Jen.
Anytime.
Dylan.
Good night.
Guys.
Yeah,
Thank you,
thanks, Jane.
Dylan and
Thanks,
Jane.
Thank you.